Okay, so let's talk about editing your papers using generative AI. So there is a long history of using computers and software to help edit papers. Um, if we go back, we start probably with spell check. It was something that was built into Microsoft Word and other products. And when you type something wrong, a little red squiggly line would show up at the bottom and you'd be like, oh, I must have misspelled that word. You right click on it and it's going to give you some recommendation for what to change. Something very simple, but the computer is telling you to fix your work. And eventually over time, we started adding grammar check. Grammar check, so in addition to like little red squiggly lines, now we start getting like blue and green squiggly lines telling us, hey, why don't you rephrase this? Why don't you use this word? I think you used the wrong word. And it was just something that was programmed into the computer, and they understood how English and other languages operate. And when words are in the wrong order, or a word that's there doesn't match the structure of the sentence, maybe something's wrong. And so for a very long time, computer and software have all been able to recognize how writing could be improved. We start to get products like Grammarly, to where in addition to using something like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, for example, now we've got this third-party plugin that we can add, that we can use just on the internet. So anytime that you are, just type in an email or something like that, this little arrow can pop up and just double check your work. I've used it. It's been incredibly helpful. And it's something that I think people don't bat an eye at all, because it's been around a long time and people have accepted it. With ChatGPT and other generative artificial intelligence products have started to come out, people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't have computers writing for us. And I think that's one of the biggest differences, is we've gone from recommendations to change what we've written and maybe even rephrase complete sentences to we can ask it, type in a prompt, and it can just write for us. And so now people are starting to question, what do we do? So let's talk a little bit about the place and the use of generative AI in editing a paper. Okay, so at this point, we're going to assume you've already written the paper. I don't think anyone's going to have a problem with you asking for recommendations, like a spell check or a grammar check, or even using something like Grammarly Go, I think that's what it's called, to make recommendations on how to improve your writing. I don't think anyone's going to have an issue with that. So I would totally recommend to my students, after you finish writing your paper, go to ChatGPT or some other product like Grammarly and submit it and type in a prompt saying like, analyze the quality of this essay. And it will break down and tell you exactly what it thinks. In fact, if you really want to be thorough, create a search prompt based on the rubric that you're being graded by, whether my class or someone else's class. I would highly recommend doing that. And it's something that ChatGPT is good at. It's good at reading. Now, we're not asking it to write at this point. We're asking it to read. So say, let's say you're supposed to have a strong thesis statement and use evidence and whatever. Put that into your prompt. Analyze this essay for the quality of its thesis statement, use of evidence, grammar and punctuation, whatever. And you just be a very thorough prompt. Copy and paste your paper in there, and then see what it spits out, because it's really good at reading. And then you can go back and make sure that your stuff is good. You can also just ask it to edit your grammar and punctuation and spelling and see what spits out. But I would always double check whatever you're asking it to do. Don't just trust it. Don't just believe it. Double check it yourself, right? This is the model of using it as a co-pilot, someone to help you do something, to proverbially, theoretically sit next to you in the process and help as you ask for it. It's not taking the lead. It's not flying the plane. you're flying the plane. You're just asking, okay, what do you think about this? It's good at that sort of thing. So I would recommend that. Let me tell you a story. Okay, so this was years ago, long before ChatGPT. I was writing a cover letter for a job I was applying for. This was my first teaching job I was applying for. And I was writing it, you know, and just using spell check the way that I had always used it, you know. If it tells me something is wrong, I right click on it, I choose the first word, and then I move on. I didn't pay enough attention to what was going on. My wife comes around my shoulder and she's reading the letter behind me and she's like, "Can I make fun of you for a minute?" And, okay. So she tells me, I think you used the wrong word there. So I was applying to teach at a high school that had preparatory. I said it wrong already. Preparatory preparatory in the name, but spell check had recommended predatory, and that is not something you want to be in a cover letter when you're going to work with children. You know, take it as a Freudian slip or whatever. It's not something you want to put into their head. They're not going to trust you. You're not going to get the job. Both words were spelled correctly. It changed it to a word that was spelled correctly, but it didn't know my intent. It didn't know what I was trying to say. And I didn't pay close enough attention. So if you're going to use a product like ChatGPT or any spell check or whatever, always double check the work. If you're asking it for recommendations, what do you think about that? You don't have to accept the recommendations. If it suggests using a different phrase, is that better? Ask yourself, because you're the one who's in charge. But these are useful tools that are totally okay. Let me tell you one more story though. I had a student recently that submitted a paper and hadn't come to class very often. And so there were some red flags there when I was asked to, can I turn in this paper late? Okay, sure. And then I was using turnitin.com, which originally was just to double check for plagiarism, but now it's got this AI detection feature, right? So I opened up the file to see what it said, and it said 41% of this paper was written by AI, or whatever that means. But 41 is a high percentage on this, you know, AI detector. So I asked the student, I said, hey, this program thinks that this was written by AI. Was it? You know, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna listen to what the student has to say. So when I talked to the student said, oh, no, I used a paraphraser. Paraphraser, what's that? I don't know what they were talking about. They'd used Grammarly, but the AI features on Grammarly to kind of polish the paper. At least that's what they said. Now I'm taking the student at their word. So what does this have to do with you? Well, if you are going to finish your paper, let's say you've already written it and you're just going to ask the AI to polish and fix it, be aware of how much is being done, and it might look to some sort of detection software like AI is written in the first place. So this is one reason why I ask my students, show me your rough draft, show me your final draft, like show me all the work. So it's pretty clear that this is your work. We're just using the tool to help improve it. If you're not in my class, you know, just be aware that this is going on and be careful. Use the tools as they're relevant and they're helpful, but also understand there is a flip side to the coin. And even if you have a good reason to use the tool, you're not trying to cheat the system or anything like that, it might still look like you are. So, do I recommend using generative AI for editing? Yes, I do. But be cautious and be aware. I hope that this video was helpful. I'll see you in the next one.